Hello, world.
Hi, everyone.
It's me. It's Greg.
I'm Jessica Alter.
Say hi, Alex.
Hello, this is Alex, Lindsay.
Hand it over, Jessica.
Welcome, everyone, to the May 2019 Tech for Campaigns All Hands. We want to talk today about a couple important things. I'm sure that you've heard a lot about what's going on in the states and the fight for reproductive rights. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then Alex, Lindsay, our head of operations, and Dana Lancaster, our new Virginia state lead, are going to talk a little bit more about Virginia and the 30 campaigns that we're helping there. And Greg will talk more about work that we were doing in Arizona that just wrapped up. And then we'll take your questions. So excited to have you guys here. You can start to post questions in Q&A as well. We'll try to get to them as we go, but there'll be time for Q&A at the end too. One of the really important things that Tech for Campaigns does is about 80% of our effort goes into state legislatures. And I know that can make people glaze over. I just want to be really clear. The fight for abortion is happening in state legislatures, period. Nothing's going on in Congress, and Congress really can't do anything. The state legislatures are where the fight is happening. And this is not an accident. Even though you're just hearing about it in the news right now, this is a long game that the Republicans have been playing. So since 2009, if you guys have been on these calls before, you've probably seen these slides. We've lost control of over 900 seats, and with that, we've lost control of 39 bodies. What that means is state senates or state houses or governorships that turned from Democratic to Republican. With that, and you can see all the red, they're able to pass laws in their state legislatures, and the governor will definitely sign them into law, that are things that most people would not consider progressive or even centrist. And that's what you're seeing right now with all of the seriously restrictive or all outright bans on abortion that have been happening. The reason that it's happening now is because there's an opening in the Supreme Court, but this is just a long game that they've been playing. They didn't all of a sudden gain control. So things we talk about all the time that are controlled by state legislatures, just examples: voter suppression. If you were pissed off about what happened in Georgia, that's a state law. If you're pissed off about redistricting, those are state laws. Abortion, state laws. Healthcare, state laws. You'll start to notice a theme. This is actually the states that are starting to pass either very restrictive laws or that are pending restrictions. You can also see in some of the blue states that they're actually doing the opposite and trying to pass protections. One of the narratives I've been hearing, though, is that this is happening in the South. It is happening in the South, but just to be really clear, not only the South, like North Dakota is not the South, Ohio is not the South, Utah is not the South, and to start to think of it as only a South problem, it's a Southern problem, is very short-sighted. And the work that we do at the state legislative level is super important. So as an example, last year in Michigan, we helped to break a supermajority in the Senate. There's also a Democratic governor there, so that helps to block major restrictive laws happening there. If there was a supermajority, they could probably veto the governor. This is just one example of where the work that the Tech for Campaigns volunteers are doing is just super impactful. So again, there's a direct connection. State legislatures are passing the laws that are effectively banning abortion. And then, yes, they will go to the Supreme Court. That is actually part of the goal, is to pass laws that need to be challenged in the courts and then can actually make it all the way to the Supreme Court. So just to be clear, none of these laws are actually, even though they're signed, none of them are enacted yet. Abortion is not illegal anywhere. And we expect there to be a ton of legal fights. How this relates to us right now, not just overall. Overall, obviously, it's part of our strategy to be in all the state legislatures. But as you can see right here, it's happened in Georgia, Alabama, Missouri. And then when the Georgia bill passed, which was just not even 2 weeks ago, one of the Virginia delegates in their house, in their state house, Bob Thomas, was asked about the Georgia ban, and he said, I don't think it's too extreme. I'd like to see us do something like that in Virginia. Well, Virginia is a 2019 election, and it's where we're spending most of our time in 2019. So immediately we galvanized a team, and within 24 hours, they were up and running ads for Josh Cole, who is running against Bob Thomas. And I'll assume you have not been following this race, but in 2017, Josh Cole lost by 82 votes. And so this is a really, really close race. And it's a really clear choice between choice and not choice. And so we're supporting Josh Cole. He has at least one TFC team right now. I don't know if he has more. But they are already running ads for him. They were up and running ads. They were up and running ads against Bob Thomas within 24 hours of that statement coming out. I guess we have a website team for him too. So a huge thank you to the volunteers who have been doing all the work for Josh Cole and against Bob Thomas. This is just one example of how important the fight is and how current the issues are that we're fighting in Virginia on the ground right now. So a huge thanks to Annie, Patrice, Bernadette, Kevin, Zach, Jonathan, Danielle, Jim, and also Dana, who you'll hear from later, who's been really instrumental in getting these things out. And I know that within the first couple days, there was a 3 times ROI on Josh's ads. And so people are really responding, and this is just one awesome example of, not just being angry and posting on social media, but actually getting involved and making an impact. 82 votes is nothing. So the number of people that we can reach with this message is super, super impactful, and make sure that Josh Cole can flip this district. So I just can't stress enough how important the state legislatures are in this fight and in many fights. And I'm really proud of the teams and the work that the staff is doing in Virginia and elsewhere. So with that, I'm gonna let Dana and Alex talk a little bit more about what we're doing in Virginia, including but not limited to the Josh Cole.
Thanks, Jessica. So if you were at the last All Hands, this slide probably looks familiar. As Jessica mentioned, we are really, really focused, almost entirely focused on Virginia in 2019 here at Tech for Campaigns. And just to reiterate, and for those folks that weren't at the last All Hands, Virginia is so critical, not only because every single seat in both the House of Delegates and the State Senate is up for grabs in 2019. So in November, there's an election for every single seat. But also because the Democrats are so close to becoming the majority, and it's within reach. There were 3 races, Josh Cole was one of them, that were lost by fewer than 200 votes in 2017. And some districts look even more favorable this year because of district lines being redrawn so that they're not as heavily gerrymandered. So again, a huge opportunity here, which is why we are helping as many candidates at both the House of Delegates and State Senate level as we possibly can. Very, very important to maintain the governorship, of course, but also hopefully take at least one of these houses for the Democrats so that they can pass really critical education, healthcare, jobs, policies, and pass policies that can at the very least maintain, but ideally protect for the foreseeable future, reproductive rights for women in the state. So we have been working in Virginia since the first of the year. We've done a lot of website projects. We've done a lot of email marketing projects that are continuing on. We've done a lot of digital ads projects. We're working at pretty much every level. So the House of Delegates, the State Senate, as well as with the House and Senate caucuses directly. So since the last All Hands, which was I think 7 or 8 weeks ago, we've increased the number of projects by about 60%. And we anticipate just continuing that sort of progress, working with more candidates, doing more projects for candidates that we've already worked with, as Josh Cole illustrates, things like that. So because we expect to do 70 or potentially upward of 70 projects in Virginia, we've actually brought on Dana Lancaster as the Virginia State Director, Virginia State Lead. So she will be taking over all of the projects, overseeing all of the projects in Virginia. She'll be the TFC partner for any TFC teams working on projects right now or in the future. And she'll be a great resource and an asset. She'll provide a lot of context to those teams and provide the kind of strategic input that's required at all levels to make these projects successful and help win elections. So I'll let Dana quickly introduce herself, but then also talk a little bit about both her experience as a TFC volunteer before she joined us full-time on staff, as well as the projects that her and her teams are working on now related to the reproductive rights issue. Welcome, Dana.
Thank you, Alex. Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. I'm excited to be working with TFC full-time now. And as Alex said, I have experience as a volunteer with TFC. I've been the team lead on the Amy Lawfer email marketing project for the Senate District 17. It's been a really successful project so far. We've raised nearly $7,000 in the last 3 months. And I've also been the team lead on the current Senate caucus ads campaign, and we're doing some great work on that one as well, highlighting a lot of contrast with the Republicans on healthcare and specifically on the abortion issue, which, as everybody knows and as Jessica said, is really hot right now. So I'm really happy to be here, and yeah, please, any Virginia teams that if I haven't talked to you yet, I think I've probably talked to everybody, but feel free to reach out to me on Slack with any questions you have about what's going on in Virginia, your projects, and I'll be talking to you soon on that. So I just want to get into a couple of the campaigns that we've been running in the last week and a half or so in response to all the abortion bans that have come out. We had some teams that responded really quickly, got campaigns up and running within, like Jessica said, 36 hours in response to the news about the Alabama ban and also in response to Bob Thomas. Our team working on an ads campaign for the House Democrats got a few different ads up very quickly, some targeting Bob Thomas specifically and quoting, some of the key quotes that he used in talking about wanting to bring those bans to Virginia. And we also did some ads that really focused more on how Virginia is a pro-choice state. 2/3 of Virginians support the current laws and don't want stricter abortion laws. And that really what they're trying to do really doesn't represent Virginia's values. So we've been really hitting home that kind of messaging. Those campaigns have been really strong so far, and the team is starting to test some new ad creatives and messaging, especially in light of Missouri jumping on board and this issue not going away. The Lawfer team that I've been working with responded also within 24 hours, got an email out really hammering home the fact that Democrats are not going to allow this in Virginia. And we got that out, and it's raised almost $1,000. We're still seeing it went out a little over a week ago, and we're still seeing donations trickling in from that. So again, this really high priority issue that people are focused on. And then, as Jessica mentioned, the Josh Cole campaign contrasting with Bob Thomas, we got a rapid response team up the day the news came out, and the response to that was amazing. We raised 3 times, what we spent on it, and just wanted to, highlight as well that some of the ads that we ran, as you can see here, with Josh smiling and really saying "Stand with Josh for reproductive freedom." A lot of those ads are performing really well. So that I know several other ad teams and email teams are working on responses to this, and it's still in the media. It's still a hot issue right now. So, please continue to work with your campaigns and, get this messaging out and test different messages and see what works. Cool. So I'm going to pass it on to Greg now for the next part.
Oh. Hello. Okay, so obviously, as Jessica mentioned, things that are going on right now in Virginia as the sort of next available election or the next election are incredibly important. But we also at TFC we need to keep building infrastructure, learning best practices, and really preparing for 2020. And so I'm going to talk about the Arizona postmortem that we just finished up, which is a really key component of that effort. So we supported 25 campaigns in Arizona last year with 32 projects across the House and Senate, really covering the gamut of candidates, both geographically and politically. After the election, we just love postmortems around here. We want to make sure that whenever we're doing a project that we are able to capture any learnings that happen and create a flywheel so that the next projects that are coming over the next few years perform, have the benefit of all that knowledge. So we were able to work with the Arizona Democratic caucuses and 2 other organizations that were active in the state last year to conduct a really, really comprehensive postmortem of the 2018 election. So we looked at things like the media mix, how voters were contacted, and media mix means who received mail, who received television, who received digital advertising, text messages, because it's one big puzzle. It's one state, it's one voter, and regardless of how they're contacted, be it through a digital method or an offline method, it's that person's vote that we need. So there were tons of findings, but kind of a few that we can call out here are that overall, the statewide field activity was effective in increasing turnout amongst, we can call it occasional voters. It's a midterm election. Like you see on the chart on the right, Arizona's turnout in 2014 was 47.5%, and its turnout in 2018 was almost 65%. So there was a massive increase in how the electorate was responding to the election and how they were coming out to vote. And so that was really unprecedented. It happened throughout the country, but in Arizona specifically, it was really unprecedented. So good news is the efforts that our partners amongst the Democratic Party, the caucuses and the campaigns, a lot of that work was effective in driving people out. A second thing to talk about is that in campaign world, many campaigns still rely a lot on landline telephone to contact voters. Arizona is perhaps a place where it can work more than it can in other states, but the national pickup rate for political calls, as I don't think anybody on this call will be surprised by, is nearly 6%. So only 6% of calls get picked up, but campaigns are still relying a lot on that channel. So one of the key lessons and findings was the need to re-architect that contact method for 2020. And the second thing that was really encouraging to see were that younger voters were significantly more likely to vote upon receiving contact from the campaign versus older voters. And that's really positive to see because it's more engagement. It's the kind of groups that we would hope and expect Democrats to be able to capture. And we were able to observe that behavior in action and memorialize it for Learning 2020. So there were a lot of other findings that were much more tactical, and for the campaigns and the Democratic Party there to share. But it was just a really interesting and worthwhile project that's going to directly inform how Arizona is structuring its 2020 voter contact, to make sure that as folks in Arizona and organizations like us contact voters, that that we do so in as efficient and as effective a way as possible. And it's also important to call out that this was an effort that was both volunteer and staff driven. So a lot of what we talk about and a lot of what we do as an organization is volunteer focused. We're very grateful for the skills and enthusiasm of our 10,000 plus skilled volunteers. But we were able to integrate both staff and volunteers in this project in a way that was really impactful, and I think brought the sort of best of both worlds, where we were able to pair political know-how with really strong data science and analysis backgrounds to produce the best result that we could as an organization. So big thanks to David, Patrick, Subhan, who worked on this project with me, and I think it's something that's going to be really valuable as we go into 2020. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Q&A. Again, if you are going to use the Q&A feature on Zoom or just the chat window, that's fine. But now's the time.
Great. So I got one question from Arthur, who we'll follow up with directly and individually later this week. But just wanted to address the question about applying for projects and getting declined. So we are super appreciative of even your time spent sort of offering it to our teams and to our campaigns, to our candidates. Some of our projects are just particularly oversubscribed, especially sort of ad hoc data science projects. So if you're a data scientist and you're applying to a project like the election prediction modeling project, for example, or projects like that, where there are much fewer projects than we have slots available, that's the reason. So we just get a ton of super qualified applicants, and we'd love to confirm them all. But if you haven't been staffed on a project yet, I would encourage you to keep applying, because eventually we'll find a place.
Are there other questions? Oh. The last newsletter mentioned that TFC is hiring a full stack engineer for a new analysis and reporting system. Are there more details on this project?
Click the link.
You want to address it, or you want me?
Yeah, so if you're interested, just follow that link. Will put you in the right place. We're not releasing a ton of information about that broadly right now, but basically it's a tool to help campaigns do more efficient reporting on sort of their day-to-day activities, so that campaigns and their partners who are responsible for managing a lot of campaigns at once can kind of take some of the data drudgery and manual reporting out of their day, and have that time to advise candidates, and do all the good work that they should be doing. But if you are interested, reach out via AngelList, Greg at techforcampaigns.org, or if you're on Slack, you can DM me.
One quick note about this software is we're initially building this for Virginia in 2019, but the goal is actually to roll it out to all the states that we're helping in 2020. So like any software tool that we build, we often have one sort of beta user in mind, but we only build stuff if we see broad applicability. So this is the kind of thing that can help thousands of campaigns. It will help almost 150 in Virginia just in this one cycle.
There's a question about where you can go to see available projects that we're currently staffing. Right now, there's no sort of central repository on the web or on our website or anything like that. So the best way to figure out what projects we're staffing at any given time is just to follow our newsletter. And we put our highlighted projects in there, and you can apply directly. To the person who asked this question, I will reach out to you directly as well.
Also make sure it's not going to like promotions.
Yeah, we send our newsletter every week, pretty much without fail. So if you're not getting it every week, definitely let one of us know if you check your promotions and your spam and stuff and it's still not there.
If you find it in promotions, drag it over to the inbox.
Or worse than spam.
So Gabriel's question about digital marketing expertise. So we're generally in need of digital marketing expertise that Facebook and Google, sort of people who are experts in traffic and digital advertising via Facebook and Google. We generally look for folks with a bit of a performance mentality, meaning people who are used to running campaigns for mobile apps or e-commerce stores. But that's sort of a pretty broad category. And if you're coming from the brand world, we'd love to have you on board as well. Political campaigns kind of closely resemble both direct response and brand, meaning both campaigns that look like e-commerce if someone's going for list signups or donations, and brand campaigns where they're looking to create awareness of an election and persuade people to vote for their candidate. So if you're experienced in digital marketing, trafficking, buying, user acquisition, please reach out. We're always happy to have it.
We had a question about folks that are from folks that are not necessarily super technical, but have something like content marketing or writing skills. There are definitely projects that can use you. So right now we're staffing a lot of website and email fundraising, email marketing projects. For both of those types of projects, there's one person on each team that is a copywriter or a content marketer. So those kinds of skills are actually super valuable. And we would still encourage you to stay on the lookout. If you're, even if you're not, a software engineer or a data scientist, there are lots and lots of project opportunities to help with.
Or texting though.
Yeah, in the future we'll do things like texting outreach.
Answer.
Okay, Connie's question about processes for gathering data from the campaign. Hi, Connie. I know what you're asking about, and it's a great question. Every campaign is a little bit different in how much they're basically where they are in their cycle, where they are in developing their candidates' story and brand, getting people on the ground, having campaign managers who are sort of ready to, they're all actively learning because each campaign starts over every election. So we are actively thinking about ways to push that process forward, gathering more information up front. That's one of the things that Dana is going to do, is work with each campaign to know their story, so that as each volunteer team gets in place, they'll be ready to go and as prepared as they possibly can. It's always a bit of a hectic world. That's what campaigning is. So I'm guessing there won't be a silver bullet, but it's instead a problem that we'll actively work out and hopefully continue to make improvements. I know it's a big thing that Dana's going to be focused on as well.
Yeah, I will also say that there are a lot of candidates that are new to politics, new to campaigning. Sometimes they won't even have a campaign manager on board when we start to work with them. Sometimes we choose those candidates with that knowledge because we know that they need the help. The caucuses have told us that they need the help, and so we know that sometimes that will just be a challenge. And the value that a TFC team provides, even though maybe all of their platform isn't totally worked out, is still tremendous. And it can actually help them get to that next step of sort of coherent messaging around the issues that are part of their platform.
So we have a question from, we got comments, okay. We have a question about what are considered good fundraising numbers for ad campaigns or quarterly totals for state Congress. We can talk a little about districts and more about ROI.
So it's actually it really depends on the campaign's goals. One of the good things about an ad that's asking for a fundraising donation is it's also an ad that lets people know about the candidate. So in terms of the ROI, so to speak, of like how many donations am I looking for versus the cost that I have in those ads, it's not a cop-out answer. It's a true answer that it really does depend on what each campaign is looking for. At some level, being positive is a great outcome, and certainly we're really happy with Josh Cole making 3 times on their money in terms of donations. But it's a tough. It's something that takes practice, takes skill. This is why we concentrate on bringing those skills to the campaigns as TFC. It is important to know that a lot of the state candidates out there are expecting to maybe raise $100,000 or less for the entire cycle, so for the entire election. Some out there are going to raise hundreds of thousands, but these are campaigns that are operating on 1 staff person, 2 staff people, and really trying to make their dollar go farther. So even if we're able to raise a few $1,000s from online fundraising and optimizing digital media, that's still a big win and a needle mover for these campaigns.
So there's a question about how our emerging software development efforts relate to those of established providers in the tech space, like NGP Van. For those of you that don't know, NGP Van is basically a massive software platform used by pretty much all Democrats running for office at almost every level of office. You can manage all of your voter files in there. There is an email platform feature set. You have to manage, in most cases, fundraising through that because you have to submit your fundraising numbers for compliance, and they deal with all of that. They have tons and tons of other features, and they sort of control the space. So our perspective is really that we want to be as useful as we possibly can to campaigns. So we're not here to, make hundreds of millions of dollars in a sort of for-profit situation. We're here to help these candidates get elected. And so to the extent possible, we try to work with the existing software platforms that campaigns are already using. Yep, and all complementary systems. Okay, if you got a question about interested in working on a project but having no experience in a campaign, that's totally fine, totally great. Almost all of our volunteers have no prior political or campaign experience. When you get staffed on a project, we have some resources to help you get up to speed. And there are a lot of returning volunteers that also can help you answer questions. Certainly folks like Dana, the Virginia State Director, are there to provide all of the context you need to be effective. It's certainly important to come up to speed quickly in the campaign context so that you can be effective, but we try and leverage your existing skills in the non-campaign space as much as possible.
So there's one question from William. In a fundraising campaign like Josh's, Greg, and Dana, are you guys specifically interested in targeting likely VA voters or just anyone who might be willing to donate to maximize ROI?
In a fundraising, and Dana, we can play with the camera. In a fundraising context, because, like I said, every dollar is really valuable to these campaigns. If we're going to raise funds or get email signatures or email signups, we're going to go to those audiences that are most likely to convert. The dollars that go into these ads from the campaigns are very, very valued, and certainly we want to make sure that we're able to run these campaigns in a cost-efficient manner. That it's an important thing that the likely voter is, for campaigns that are taking place later in the cycle, where it's much more about creating awareness of the election, of your candidate, persuading people to vote for you. That is where you want to be talking to likely voters. Is where you want to be talking to people who are sort of part of these precise audiences in the district. But while campaigns are trying to get their feet under them, raise money and expand their audiences, it's a much more broad category. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Greg said. And, I think the great thing about Facebook ads is that there's a lot of different interest groups and targeting that you can play with to, really hone in on the right audience and make sure that that you are reaching the people who are most likely to respond and most likely to either donate or sign up.
Okay, looks like one final question. Can you explain what skills you're looking for in a data analyst? Every company has slightly different definitions in terms of focus of tools.
Yes, I would say it really depends on the project that we're staffing a data analyst for. For something like an email project, just the a fluency with any kind of sort of basic analysis, a basic understanding of marketing metrics is helpful, but not necessary. Certainly, just like some flexibility and willingness to learn and pitch in where you can is really important, because all campaigns have slightly different needs in terms of the kinds of reporting that is useful to them. So again, it depends on the project, and we have project descriptions and role descriptions for each. So I'd encourage you to look at that first, and then email if you have questions about it. But it's pretty straightforward. We typically look for folks that have at least a couple of years of professional experience before we staff them on projects. But if you're a data analyst who has a couple of years of professional experience, it's probably sufficient to work on a project that needs a data analyst.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Last call.
Any other questions?
All right, everybody.
Okay, thank you guys so much. One quick shout out to anyone in the Bay Area. We are together with Manny's hosting Florida State House Rep Anna Escamani on Friday at 6:45. She and I will be on stage having real conversation about what's going on in Florida. You might have seen her go viral a week and a half ago on all the abortion rights laws and how they've prevented bad things from happening in Florida. Obviously a hugely important state, so if you can make it 6:45 Manny's in San Francisco, and if not, we'll be interviewing her afterwards on Instagram for everyone who can't make it. So thanks to everyone who has made Tech for Campaigns possible. And a huge thanks to this team, and you can't see Aki, who's behind us, who makes it possible. You can kind of see who makes it possible. And hope to get you guys involved. 2019 is a really important year. It's not just about the presidentials. So thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.